Welcome back to Fox Magazine. I'm Lori Dew. You know, it's one thing to climb mountains because they're there, go deep sea diving, or digging for buried treasure in the desert. But when adventurers start climbing bridges, walking into deep underground tunnels, or exploring abandoned ruins in a big city, that's when things get a little wacky, to say the least. Well, our producers were fascinated by these slightly off-center urban explorers of invisible frontiers and asked them why they embark upon these missions of metropolis madness.
At Jinx, we don't use any kind of equipment or make any kind of planning or do anything that would be remotely called intelligent when we go out on these missions. We go out in our suits and sunglasses, and that's it.
And the average person just sees the bridges and the tunnels as utilities, as a means to an end, as a way to get from home to work, from work to home. And these are all wonderful things, but we're interested in scratching the surface a little bit more. New York City is the perfect grounds for urban exploration, and I'll tell you why.
We have structures in this city that are famous all over the world, and we've climbed on or explored a great number of them, you know, from the statue on top of Grand Central Station's facade to the top of the Brooklyn Bridge to the tunnels under Grand Central Station. I mean, these are structures that are world famous.
It's incredibly important that people at home understand the incredible danger of what's going on right now. You see, LB has made his way to the roof of Grand Central Station. If he were to fall off to one side, it would surely be to his death.
The missions began in the beginning part of June 2001. The initial plan was to go from the depths of the city tunnel number 3, which is the deepest place in New York City, and at the highest point we would reach the top of the antenna on the World Trade Center number 1. If I were to go across the entire history of Jinx urban exploration, I would say that the greatest moments have been high-up moments, I believe.
My first attempt to climb the Manhattan Bridge.
The first time that I sat on the head of the statue of Mercury on the facade of Grand Central Station.
The cold air hitting my face with death all around.
It leans out over the street, so you're almost kind of leaning back as you climb up the front of it.
Seeing a view that so few would ever see and had ever seen.
With the wind howling in my face, my tie flying up in my face, and I can assure you that at moments like that you realize just how stupid you truly are. There are times when urban exploration and daredeviltry are very, very similar. And then there are other times when the daredevil aspect is very subdued. There are a lot of daredevil activities like bungee jumping or jumping over a bunch of flaming barrels on a motorcycle. These activities, while worthwhile, are probably done almost entirely for the thrill, the adrenaline, and the praise of people who admire that sort of thing. Urban exploration, while occasionally involving some danger, I think is really much more of an aesthetic and an intellectual pursuit. The things that we discover all the time, even though we've been doing this for years, continue to flabbergast us. I mean, we are continuously amazed to discover some new thing that, despite its Herculean importance to the city and to the country, is little known. The last mission we did was on September the 9th, 2001. That was the George Washington Bridge, which we climbed obviously just 2 days before the September 11th attacks. When something like 9/11 happens, the last thing you're thinking about is something as frivolous as this little book, which is, after all, light entertainment. I think my thoughts on 9/11 were much like anyone else's, that I was obviously horrified and terrified. Obviously, I would have liked to climb the World Trade Center's antenna. I did have a certain affection for that building, but, you know, we carry on like everyone else.
Now is the time.
Between you and me and the fence post, we have not been entirely dormant in the last year or so. We have discovered for ourselves that the heightened security around a lot of the structures in the city is not so heightened as to give any serious concern to anyone with experience in urban exploration. As for whether we ought to stop is an entirely separate question and perhaps a more valid question. The risk of creating a panic or a false alarm is a serious risk that must be taken seriously. It would be totally unacceptable if we were to cause the kind of a situation that we saw just a few weeks ago on the Williamsburg Bridge, where a couple of drunken hooligans were seen clowning around in the structure, and the bridge was shut down for a period of several hours. Helicopters were brought in, who knows how many cops, how many National Guardsmen. So the question is, can we pursue our ends without causing that kind of situation? And it is my belief that we can, especially in a time like this when there's terror and fear all around. It's very natural to retreat into our own lives, into ourselves. Nevertheless, this very natural instinct ought to be challenged.
Whatever makes you happy. Now that the urban explorers at Jinx have completed their underground chronicle of New York City, they're setting their sights on explorations worldwide, maybe even in your town. Coming up next, a teenager's heartbreaking story of her mother's incarceration.
I just don't feel as though I was given enough time to be with her. And the restrictions on visiting and whatnot makes it really difficult to see her when I need or maybe want to see her.